Hey, you guys. I am very late today. Did not get to do a power lunch because I was at the DMV with my youngest son, getting him a driver's license. So that's exciting to have another driver in the house. But I wanted to pop in because, first, to say thank you to all of my friends and connections and allies who have called, sent messages to me regarding being empathetic to what's happening in the Black community with the murder of um, Mr. Floyd and of caring about what's going on. And I've got my windows open right now because, well, I have my windows open anyway because it was a nice day to catch a breeze. But we live downtown, and because I have my windows open, I could actually hear the protest happening outside, as hundreds of people were coming through the streets protesting here in Milwaukee about what happened in Minneapolis. And so I decided to go outside, and I caught a couple of pictures, and then I saw some police officers that I know, because I do know a lot of amazing police officers on the force, been serving a long time, and I appreciate them and what they do. And the ones that I ran into were on the bridge on this side of downtown, kind of taping what was happening. And it I just felt like I needed to pop in and have a conversation. So, I'm married to a Black man. I have two African American sons. You hear the sirens outside and the helicopters, perhaps, because it's really serious down here. The police told me they're not sure. Usually they're given a heads up regarding protest and they know the route. But I guess with this one in particular, it was so impromptu that they're not sure where the individuals are headed. So they're kind of just chasing them, not chasing, but they're following them as they progress through downtown from wherever the starting point was. I'm not sure. And so I pray that everybody stays safe and that there's nothing that happens that makes things worse. I am absolutely disgusted by the tweet from President Trump calling the individuals that rioted in Minneapolis thugs, for getting to the place that their anger bubbled over into that type of action. I mean, no, I never want to see a neighborhood burned down, and I don't want to see looting. Guys, I live right downtown, like right by the arena, so that was motorcycles. I never want to see looting, and I don't want to see businesses burned down, and I don't want to see a police station burned down. But there is a level of unrest that can happen when people are tired of being oppressed. And we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of oppression as African Americans in this country. And so to understand it is almost impossible. My husband has been heavy all week. And at first I didn't realize why, but then it hit me that he's heavy because of what happened to this other Black man. Like, he feels it even more deeply than me as a Black woman, and he carries it with him. And so he and I were talking because people have been asking me, as a community leader, as someone who is very open to talking about diversity and talking about how we can be better allies with one another, and as someone who is on purpose an ally across other ethnicities, because I believe that we're stronger together. Like, what can I say? What can I do? What shouldn't I say? What should I do? And it's like, at the end of the day, there's really nothing that you can say. If you're not African American, there's not really anything that you can say to your African American ally, friend, colleague. It's almost like when someone loses a parent or a child or, a significant loved one. I mean, you can say, I'm sorry. You can say, I love you. You can say, I'm here for you. But beyond that, there's nothing else you can say. Like, unless, only mothers who've lost children can understand the pain of another mother who has lost children. Yeah, we're fine, Nicole. We're completely fine. We in our house. We live in a very great neighborhood. Our buildings are fine. They're not gonna let that happen over here. So we're fine. Um, so now I don't know how the other side of the bridge is doing, unfortunately, because depending on what area code or zip code you live in and what neighborhood you live in Milwaukee, definitely the treatment is different. But we straight. It's too many affluent people walking their little cute dogs around here for them to let it go now. So anyway, my point is that it's not really African Americans that I would encourage my white counterparts to talk to. It is talk to the other whites in your life that could be a catalyst for these situations. Talk to them about systemic racism. Talk to them about white fragility. Talk to them about their racism. Talk to them about white privilege, about acknowledging it, and about what they can do with the privilege to help the world be a better place. Because at the end of the day, unless you are heartless and have no soul, I don't know anyone, regardless of your political association, if you are human, I'm not sure how you could watch that video. I'm not sure how our president could tweet what he tweeted and have watched that video of that man begging for his life, and then that be his response. He has his own agenda that is only to serve him, and it's probably some other room of rich people that we know nothing about. And so back to my point, because it's ain't about Trump. His tweet kind of got me. And then on top of that, Twitter flagged one of his tweets when he was talking about mail-in ballots, and he threatened he gonna shut down Twitter and file executive orders. The man is all over the place. And I feel like a lot of what's happening in our country could be a lot calmer if we, leadership matters, and how you lead matters. And you have to lead from out front, and you have to lead by example. And so if the example that you are leading with is one of negativity, and one that breeds chaos, and one that breeds fighting and animosity amongst people, then that's what you're going to see spread throughout whatever sphere you're leading. And so I feel like that is what we've been experiencing. But back to what you can say, because that's the point of the conversation. And I called it thin air because, of course, he was saying I can't breathe, and Eric Gardner said I can't breathe. And it's like the air is it feels thin at times. It's suffocating for African Americans to be, in a country that was built on our backs for free, and to feel like there are certain places that I can't breathe and I'm not welcome. I was in Nashville at the beginning of this year in January with a girlfriend, and we were just trying to find some place to eat dinner, and it was late, and we were on a road trip, so we just stopped and we walked in downtown Nashville, and it was like a honky tonk bar, and it was like if it was an actual record that could screech when we walked in, it was like, and so I just backed on out of that place, we're not eating here. And so there are still places in America that happens. And I would say that most white people can walk into, if not all, you can walk into a Black facility and we're going to be like, hey girl, hey man, how you doing? You want a seat? You're welcome here. And so because this is our country. And so we want to feel that same type of welcome. So it's not about necessarily having a conversation with the African Americans in your life, as it is you taking responsibility to have a conversation with the other whites in your life to say, we have to do something. We have to care enough for there to be change. I know some very powerful, influential people all over this country that by them standing up and letting their voice be heard. And I'm so proud of the ones that have. I'm so proud of you. I'm super duper 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 proud of you. That it would make a difference. And if each one can reach one, to use an old school moniker, we hope to reach more than one. Then for every time you save a life, that's a life saved. And so that's one less person that dies. And I want my kids to live. My son is out right now, my 18-year-old, with his new driving privileges, and he's hanging out with his friends, and all his friends already have cars anyway, and he's going to hang out and play basketball and do whatever and be a kid. I was able to be a kid. I want my kids to be able to be a kid. But I'm tired of having to warn him, like, okay, so there's some unrest happening in the city today. Don't go no here. You don't want to be associated with that. You don't want to be affiliated with that crowd. Stay away from this street. Do this, do that. Like, it's just too much. It's too much of a weight to bear, but yet it is a weight that we have no choice but to bear. And it is a conversation that we have no choice but to have. And, Martin Luther King Jr. said that he had a dream. And I believe he really had this dream, like he could visually see it. The more I read his books and the more that I study about him, the more that I believe that he had divine sight and he could see things. And so when he said he had a dream that his 4 children would be judged by the content of the character, not just the color of their skin, that dream still lives on. And through the election of President Obama and through the integration of schools and through, the way, my family's able to live and some of your families are able to live, there definitely has been a lot of progress, but we still have so far to go, and we cannot pretend like we don't. We can't pretend like it's fixed. It's not. We keep getting proof over and over and over and over and over again through the loss of lives that it's not fixed. Our Black men feel like they are being hunted and they feel like they are unsafe, and some of our Black women. And I say feel like, but then you see things like this and it's like, is it a feel like or is it an actuality? Is it a thing that's actually happening? And so got on just to say, for those that have called, text, it is heavy. It is heavy. I'm not going to pretend like it's not. I don't really have the words to articulate and express. It's like I said, it's like someone died in your family and there's an expectation of you to comfort someone else through your own grief. And that's a really hard position to be put in. And also you see people react out of emotion because it's a very emotional thing. You have people hungry, you have people living impoverished, you have COVID happening, you have people dealing with death, you have gang violence, you have so much happening in the African American community, which is residue and leftovers of systemic racism and racial disparity and mistreatment and so many things. And it's like, well, all this Black on Black crime, and look at it. And it's just like, if you ripped our family, if you ripped us from our homeland, brought us here in the belly of a ship, separated our families, raped and pillaged us, used us as cattle, told us we were property, didn't allow us to read, didn't allow us to write, had us as free labor, building the White House, harvesting crops, planting crops, working every day but Sunday. On some places you had to work Sunday too. Separated as house help versus field help. Selling my sister, selling my daughter, having my husband watch me be raped. Like what do you expect? Like, we spent more years living that life than we have not living that life. There were more years of slavery than there has been since the Emancipation Proclamation. Like, it took 400 years to get here. It might take 400 years to get out of it. And so before you judge how a community responds to things that are unjust, and before you judge how a community responds to violence, or before you judge the mental health capacity of a community as a whole, you have to look at what has happened in the generations before. And yes, there are some, and quite a few, that have been able to overcome obstacles and to do some different things and be afforded some different opportunities. But the sum does not equal the whole yet. And until we all are better, then none of us are really better. And so it's incumbent upon all of us to feel the responsibility of that and do something about it. All right. So that's all I had to say about that. I hope it helps somebody. And if you don't get nothing else from it, talk to somebody. Talk to somebody that you know has racial tendencies. It may not be blatant. It might be, everybody's favorite microaggression. It might be subtle. I tell the story. My ex-husband is Polish. My sons are biracial. It's a very interesting world that they live in. When I took my son to get us to the DMV today, he's like, "Do I put down African American or I put down white?" I'm like, "Well, when the police pull you over, what you think they're gonna, think you are?" He's like, "Yeah, I should probably put down African American." But that's a decision that he has to make. Because he can't say, "Don't shoot, my daddy's Polish." Like, it's not going to work like that for him. And we've raised them knowing that, but also they see their dad live, move, talk to police, come in and out of stores in a way that they just never will be able to. Same with their Polish grandparents. And so everybody has done diligence to be very honest with them in their life about who they are. And they have that, we're not white enough for the white people. We're not black enough for the black people. So we just trying to, carve our lane out. How can they judge us when white people have always formed mobs and burned down black towns? I mean, for real, like, I don't know how, the people in Minneapolis yesterday were thugs, but those who were rioting and marching on the state capitol here in Wisconsin to overturn the governor's order for safer at home were concerned citizens who should be given their rights, So it just shows the dichotomy of the country that we live in and how different things can be viewed, because I mean, a mob's a mob. So, when they were out at Brookfield Square with their signs and the Confederate flags and nooses and all kinds of stuff, like, that wasn't a big deal. So it's not, life isn't fair. I'm not going to sit here and say it is. And it's like, how can they judge us? Because they can, because they want to, it's again, that's almost a rhetorical question. They do, we judge us. And so everybody has to stop and think before you judge, before you become desensitized to anything that's happening around you. I used an example day before yesterday, as I was talking about collaborating with a girlfriend to help women and children who are homeless. And it's like, I had gotten to a place that I had to be honest with myself that the homeless had become almost invisible to me because they were everywhere. And I just felt like, I wasn't judging them, but I had my own to take care of. And I was doing all this other stuff for other people. And I was helping some homeless young girls who lived in shelters and things like that. But in a sense, they were homeless because they weren't in their actual familial home, but they were at least living in a shelter or a group home situation. They weren't in tent city. They weren't on the street. They weren't on a park bench. And so there's always another level. There's always another level of love we can give. There's always another level of grace we can give. There's always another level of kindness we can give. And all of these things are free. There always is another level of understanding we can give. There's always another level of inspiration we can give. There's always another level of prayer we can give. These things are exponential. They never run out. So you can always give more of that. You can always give more of yourself to those things. And so even when you think you're at your limit, you think, I've loved all I can love. You haven't. You can love more. I've given all I can give. You haven't. You can give more. I've done all I can do. You haven't. You can do more. And so as it relates to making the world a better place, we all can do more. And so then it's just about, what do you prioritize? How do you do more? What's the plan? What do you do? Where do you start? You start. Leadership is not about title. It's about influence. So you start from your sphere of influence. And so talking to Blacks, and especially talking to whites, you have a sphere of influence. We're having virtual happy hours right now. We're having Zoom talks. We're having initiatives. Like, call up your homegirls the same way you would call them up for book club and say, we're going to talk about Ahmad, and we're going to talk about George, and we're going to talk about what we can say to young people that are in our life about how that's not cool. Are you having those conversations with young people? Are you watching the news and being like this and clutching your chest and going to Facebook and going to Instagram and going to LinkedIn and saying that's not right, but then not telling your son that's not right, or not telling your daughter that's not right, or still telling them that they couldn't bring home someone who doesn't look like them? Like, those are things to think about. Those are things to think about. And because it really does start at home, and it really does start at a young age. And there's a certain age that people can get to that it's just too late. And so you need to start now. You need to have the conversation now. Don't just have the conversation for Facebook's sake. Like, have the conversation. Have the conversation with your grandparents. Have the conversation with your aunts and uncles. Have the conversation. Even if it turns out y'all gonna have a slap, drag out, smack down argument and have to agree to disagree, because some people do get to a place that they're so set in their ways that you can't change their mind. But at least you let them know and you can see something different. I've had to have this conversation with people completely different, but I've had to have this conversation with people as a Christian who is also an advocate of the LGBTQ plus community. You know, like people, you know, will say things to me about that community, which there are people who are part of that community that I love dearly, that in my family, I would be hard pressed if you watching this and you think you don't have somebody in your family in the LGBTQ plus community. You're wrong. And so the thing is they are human, just like I am human. They have a right to love, just like I have a right to love. A lot of them have just as much faith as I have and have a relationship with God. And at the end of the day, I'm not God. And so who am I to judge? Just like someone asked about, like, who are white people to judge? Who am I to judge? And I know I just went completely off topic, but you know, it's just how I'm feeling right now. I'm doing a whole editorial commentary type thing that I don't even normally do. But the riot being outside my door kind of hyped me up. So this is what you get. All right, you guys, I am going to go now before I say too much. But I hope that it helps somebody. And if you get nothing else from this, have the conversation. Have the conversation. Have all the conversations. Talk to your kids. Talk to your kids about being accepting of all people. Talk to your kids about love. Talk to your kids about not hating. And then even Black parents, because our kids are watching this. I remember one of my daughters said to me years ago, like, why are all white people so bad? And I had to say to her, well, first of all, you know, your brother's dad is white and, you know, they probably wouldn't appreciate you calling their dad bad. So we have in-house examples. But then also I had to say to her, all white people aren't bad. And then I had to say, what about my friend so-and-so and my friend so-and-so and my friend so-and-so and my friend so-and-so? But see how I was able to say my friend, meaning my friend she's seen me around, that she sees me talk to, that she sees me interact with, my real friend, not just my coworker, because, you know, kids are honest. And kids know when you are front. And so they like, oh, yeah, these are your real friends. Okay, you're right, mama. Okay. And so be the example that you want to see, be the change you want to see. And that's why Real Talk Real Women exists, as far as forging authentic relationships across the color lines, because it's super critical, because the only thing that can conquer hate is love. And so love one another. All right, you guys. Peace, love, power. I'm out.